Good morning. Over the weekend, we broke into September. Today is September the 2nd, 2024. Wow. We enter a new season this week. A new season where in a month or so, some this month, the weather will begin to change. We enjoyed some good wet weather over the weekend. I know, folks, today's Labor Day, and I know folks don't want rainy, messy day on Labor Day, and I wish it was beautiful, beautiful day, but yet I'm so thankful that God has blessed us with some good rain. But today we begin week 36. Our author is Jay Lockhart. Over the years, I've read a lot of things he's written. Always enjoyed the things that he writes. This week he's writing about Peter, the Apostle Peter. Good lessons, good readings this week. And what an amazing person that God shares with us in this man. He was the one that you would expect sometimes to do more. And he was the one that sometimes you wouldn't expect him to do as much. But he always did something, didn't he? The three calls, our lesson today is the three calls of Peter, from Christ to Peter. Today's scriptures, John chapter 1, verses 35 through 42, Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 through 22, and Luke chapter 6, verses 12 through 16. Here's what he writes in this first lesson, first reading for this week, week 36, about Peter. Again, the author is Jay Lockhart. And again, it's September the 2nd. Wow, 2024. And it's Monday. I like to think of him as the big fisherman, a robust man with muscles in his arms and calluses on his hands. He was a fisherman who was in business with his brother and three friends. He often was brash, always opinionated, and sometimes spoke and acted before he thought things through. But, don't you love that word, but? The most challenging word in the Bible, the most mind-changing, the most action-changing word in the Bible. But, when it come to Noah, and God looked out over the earth, but Noah. Here it's about Peter. But he was a passionate man. And when he met Jesus, he was forever changed. Don't you like that? Isn't that what happened to us? His name was Peter, and this man received three calls from Christ. The call to be a disciple, John chapter 1, verses 35 through 42. While he was still called Simon, his brother introduced him to Jesus as the Messiah. The first thing Jesus did when he met Simon was to change his name to Peter, which means a stone. Simon, as a disciple, would spend the rest of his life trying to live up to this new name of Peter, a stone. Next, there was the call to be a companion. Matthew chapter 4, verses 18 through 22. Peter's second call from Christ was to leave his fishing business and become a fisher of men. Along with others, Peter became a constant companion of Jesus. He observed the perfect life of Jesus, heard him speak with all authority of God, and saw the miracles he performed and was convinced that Jesus is the Christ. Next, the call to apostleship, or the call to be an apostle. Luke chapter 6, verses 12 through 16. From the growing number of disciples, Jesus chose 12 to be the apostles. And Peter was one of these. Christ would one day place the gospel in their hands and trust them to take the message to the world. Mark chapter 16, verse 15 and 16. We too, he writes, we too have three calls from Christ. Through the gospel message, Christ calls us to be disciples, learners, followers, imitators, and gives us the name of Christians. Matthew chapter 28, verses 19 through 20, and Acts chapter 11 and verse 26. Second, Christ calls us to spiritual growth. 2 Peter 3 and verse 18, and Acts chapter 20 and verse 32. Let me say this. Christ calls us to spiritual growth. Are you growing in Christ? If you've gotten old like me, are you still growing? There's never a reason, a rhyme. There's never, ever a reason to continue to grow in Christ. We will never arrive until we arrive in God's rest. Third, Christ calls us to faithful service. Matthew chapter 25 and verse 21, Christ calls us to faithful service. Not occasional service, but faithful service. Peter accepted his calls from Christ. How are we doing in accepting Christ's calls to us? What a good question. He concludes today with today I will pray for the determination and the strength to accept the invitations of Christ. Wow. Won't we do that? Accept the invitations of Christ. Hope you have a good Labor Day. It is wet out there, but it's a nice wet because we need it so much. But be safe and have a good time. And remember that no amount of fun or activity should take us away from Christ. None. Hope you have a good day. Look forward to being with you tomorrow. Remember those that we've been praying for. Remember Sherry McCutcheon. She'll be having surgery maybe this week or maybe next week on a brain tumor. They found another spot, and they're going to be doing surgery. Continue to remember Tommy McCorkle and Ann and Natalie Allred and her family, and Ruth Tidwell and Lana Donaldson and Gary Penley and their wives and children and grandchildren. And continue to remember Mike Threet as he's taking treatments and that his cancer could be healed. And then remember his family. And remember my brother Charlie and his wife Jeannie and their family. And pray that they'll have good days, that Charlie can be healed of this cancer and that Jeannie could be healed of this Parkinson's. But just pray that they'll have good days. And pray for Barbara Dillon. Heard again yesterday that she's just defying hospice because she's living longer than hospice thought she would live. Remember Kevin and Richard and her sisters and grandson and daughter-in-law. And just pray for easement into eternity for Barbara. Good lady, good Christian lady. Oh, there's so many. Harold and Norma Jean, remember them. They're such encouragement to Jackie and I. And pray that Harold will have good days. And Norma Jean, too. I know there's others. I'm sorry, just not thinking of them. But pray and thank God for the health that we have. Boy, Jackie and I had a tiring day yesterday, a good day with the South Haleville Church of Christ, and got home and then went to Woodlawn, and we were just wore out last night. Boy, it was a good being wore out and trying to serve God. Got to be with my brother Bubba and his wife Janice yesterday. Got to hear Bubba pray twice yesterday at church. First time I've heard Bubba pray, and boy, he did a good job. But it was good to be with them. And the two Dawson boys. It's good to be with them two young boys, too. But I hope you have a good day today, a good week this week. I hope it's a week in the service of God. See you tomorrow.